Hi, friends and companions along this path of spiritual practice. The world everywhere around us reminds us that the landscape that we tread upon is quite complex and fragile, fraught with impermanence and uncertainties everywhere, about finitude, about complexity, about how unfinished this journey is. It seems as if every step of this path is seeking, is questioning. There are questions that are quite ordinary, like, do we have enough milk in the refrigerator? Do we have enough clean shirts, or do we need to do laundry again? But there are other questions that open us up because they're so dramatic. Questions about loss and grief, about vaccine, about racism. These questions that are in our nerves, in each breath. It's in our bones and in the marrow of our bones. These questions that are biological and existential to our being. There are no prepackaged answers for these questions because they encompass us. And all that we can do is to take our seat at the center of these questions and to stay there as we are able, and to allow these existential questions to have their way with us. These questions that open our hearts and our being to the greater truth and reality. These questions are like the Colorado River that has been asking the Grand Canyon for centuries upon centuries, questioning it and opening it up and shaping the Grand Canyon as we know it today. In Zen Buddhism, a koan is that kind of a question. A koan is not a clever riddle for us to solve. A koan is an affirmation of a reality and an invitation for you and I to step into that greater reality. A koan says, take a look at your heart. For within the human heart are the contradictions, are the delusions, are the incoherencies that we carry around. And the koan is asking us for an opening so that the greater reality might enter in and maybe even change our hearts. One of the incoherencies and contradictions that we carry around in our heart is that you are you and I am I, and the two shall never truly, never really meet one another, except in the world of the koan. Not only do you and I truly meet, but we have never really ever been separate from one another. This is what a koan is asking for, that opening from our heart that we might step into the reality that the Buddhist koan is presenting for us. One day, according to this Zen koan, a student monk came to Zen Master Jiaoju and asked, "The myriad things return to one. Where does the one return to?" Master Jiaoju thought and replied, "Once I was in Jingju City and I made a cloth shirt and it weighed 7 pounds. This is the koan, and it needs a little bit of unpacking, as I'm sure you can tell. The student monk has experienced something, has realized a oneness, a unity, There is a unity of life force, a ground of unity that connects all things, that weaves in and out of all things. He has spent time studying and meditating, and he has perhaps realized this one. But he comes to Master Zhao Zhu. Where does the one return to? What's next after realizing this oneness? Many of us may have studied Buddhism or many other philosophies, and we, at least intellectually and cognitively, speak about this unity. Maybe even in meditation we have touched the experience of such oneness. Zhao Zhu's response seems like a non sequitur. Once when I was in the city of Jingzhou, I made a cloth shirt. It weighed 7 pounds. While the student's question is perhaps philosophical, perhaps a general declaration of some universal truth, Zen Master Zhao Zhu responds very particularly, very concretely. Whereas the question is about oneness, Zhao Zhu speaks about a cloth shirt that weighs 7 pounds. It's as if Zen Master Zhao Zhu is saying that the one returns to the 7 pounds. And student monk, have you ever tried on a 7-pound shirt? Have you ever tried on the weight of such a life? Have you ever been curious enough not to stay up here in whatever understanding of unity or oneness, but have you ever been curious enough to experience the life of someone who lives in that other neighborhood, who comes from a different culture, who speaks a different language, whose life is about going to this work, who lives in a different economic class? Have you ever been curious, wondering enough to try on the weight of their life? There's a sense in which spirituality becomes an escape into some esoteric, mystical notion of unity or oneness. Zen Master Zhao Zhu is not dismissing that, rather is saying that spiritual practice is not a transcending away from or out of, but a movement into participation, into the particular, into curiosity enough to move us to try on the weight of a 7-pound shirt. To think about the laundry, the bills that people have to pay, to think about all of the things that people make in their life to survive, to get by, to make meaning and purpose, to step into all of the constructions of race and class and gender, and to feel the weight and the gravity. Friends, this koan is asking us to not escape into some transcendent notion of unity, but that one returns to the 7, that one is found in the many, that one is fully realized only to the extent that we find this oneness threading its way as compassion and wisdom, weaving together all the parts of a constructed reality that you and I have come to see. and to lean in so that this thread of unity, of compassion and wisdom might weave a more beautiful cloth shirt. And so we continue with our practice.